Hey y'all, it's Zack, the legal tech advisor here at Lawyerist. Today, I'd like to get you a little information on media relations in your law firm. Now, recently, I sat down with Postali's PR manager, Tamara Sykes, and discussed how you can leverage media relations to increase awareness of your law firm. So, have a listen and see what you think.
Hi, I'm Tamara Sykes. I'm the PR manager at Postali, and I'm going to talk to you today about all things public relations and media relations.
Tamara, thank you for joining us. I think we we've talked about this a couple times, and I
Yes.
still think this is something that lawyers, I don't want to say lawyers get wrong, but lawyers don't get right. A lot of times, um, I think about public relations and media relations and all of that. And we are doing it, whether we
Mhm.
know it or like it or not.
Correct. Yep.
And so kind of wanted to talk to you about, we've talked about the foundations of your public relations and media relations.
Mhm.
But wanted to talk to you really about that word there, media relations.
The reason media relations is crucial to PR is it's all about building relationships. So I think most people, lawyers included, but it's not just them. They see PR as like this magic toolbox they bring out and things just happen.
Hmm.
And media relations, that term addresses the fact that you have to build relationships, you have to connect with people, you have to be social. The best way for lawyers to understand it is networking. It's the same thing.
Okay.
So how they network with other attorneys, and that sometimes leads to referrals for their business. PR professionals, whether you are what we call PR professional, professional, um, publicist tends to do more like they're working with one person and trying to get them on Jimmy Kimmel and all this other stuff.
Okay. See,
You know,
this is how little I know about the process as well, you know?
yeah, we have different names. We also have been called brand managers because we're managing a brand's
Okay.
public image. So there's different ways to see it.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, it is all dependent on the relationships we build or that we are good at building relationships. Because the thing is, just like everyone, if you get a cold email, right, or a cold call, we
Hmm.
all send it to voicemail or we ignore it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so that media relations piece is about really getting to know a person, engaging with them. So I'm a big advocate of using Twitter to engage with
Hmm.
reporters, to like them, get to know them as humans, get them to recognize your name, your profile photo, your face, get
Hmm.
them to see that you are just a normal human being trying to connect with them to tell a great story. Where people do misstep is that they tend to think that I can just go to them and tell them the story is great and they're going to do it. And there are like many pieces involved in the process. But if you build a relationship with someone, you can understand the nuances of what they have to face, what kind of angles they're more interested in.
Okay.
And a lot of times, even for journalists, their editors make the final call. So it's not just them. They have to take the idea that you present them
Hmm.
and get it approved. And so you start to think about like why will it be important to their audience? Why should they care? I
Hmm.
probably say that statement a lot more than I love to. And when you're even out like conducting outreach, you can speak their language,
Okay.
and then it's easier to have a conversation. So media relations is really about that relationship building piece, and there's many different ways to do it. Um, but it's really key to get to know a person and engage, because once you have a warm intro, or they understand who you are, or they open their DMs to you, it's a lot easier to pitch and build that relationship, and then they come back to you for stories. That's
Hmm.
always the goal.
Well, I guess kind of thinking about that as the goal of like me getting a story out there. What's the benefit of that? What's the point of me doing that as a lawyer?
As a lawyer, I love when lawyers do it on their own and the PR team or their PR professional is supporting them,
Uh-huh.
because then we end up being in the role of facilitator, which is also great. We make sure you have the assets that you need. We make sure everything looks pretty. We make sure that we get them the video you want to send, the B-roll, the photo. We help you
Hmm.
create infographics. We get the whole package together. But when you communicate with a journalist, what you become to them as a source. And truth be told, journalists, reporters love to talk to sources more, because you're not playing telephone, right?
Right.
They respect us. They're collaborating with us to get your story out, but they're
Hmm.
never going to say like, you tell me the story. They're going to say, can I connect with your
Right.
client? So when journalists do that, I have definitely seen a lot more times than normal that if you have a client who's actually also like showing that they're a thought leader. They're sharing pieces about, their practice area, like criminal justice or
Mm-hmm.
prison reform or civil rights. And then I tell the journalists that, hey, I'm pitching this story, or they can be an expert commenter on your story.
Mm-hmm.
They usually go to social media to verify if you're really that involved.
Okay.
Because the other thing they're also looking at is this person going to amplify my story that I write? Like, think about it. If I do something great, I want someone else to share it. They're
Right.
human too. So all of those pieces work together, and then they're more likely to use you as part of that story or build a story around you. And
Mm-hmm.
what we do is we make sure that that story is secured, whether that's finding, like, if let's say you're doing something about prison reform, like you're a lawyer, but maybe they need someone who's actually been in prison and has, suffered at the hands of the system. Maybe they need someone who's a family member of someone. And then that's where we do our job and collect everything and facilitate it so that
Okay.
you are also in the story. So it's a whole process.
Mm-hmm.
But most people do think we make a call and it just happens. It's not, it's not really how it
It'd
works.
be nice. It'd be nice,
It would
right?
be nice. I mean, we all wish as PR professionals it would be nice, to be
Yeah.
honest. But no, it's all about packaging and understanding what they need to get it published on their website or in an actual like print form.
Okay. And so the ultimate goal from, my perspective as the lawyer would be press. It would be advertising. It would be that other people have read my name and associated me with the type of law that I do. So if I'm
topic, yes.
yeah, with that topic. So if I do divorces or something like that, and I do high caliber divorces, and somebody famous is getting divorced right now, and
Yes.
I'm able to speak on how you would split up that type of property or something like that
Correct.
in this state, then that might be beneficial to the media person, and it might be beneficial to me as well because my name is getting out there. Okay, so that's kind of the ultimate goal there. But like you said, we need to bring something to the table that's not just our information. We need
Correct.
to be a little savvy in the space, and have something that says, okay, well, if you're using me as opposed to this other person who is also an expert, then your story is going to get amplified more than if you used that other person over there.
Yes. What do you bring to the table? Is it years of experience? Like, it's not all around social media, but have you been an attorney for 20 years experience? If you don't have 20 years experience, like, are you passionate? Like, what can we like show that confirms you are the best expert or the best source for them to talk to? And from there, it's all about being patient. Like, here we recently had a win for a client at Postali, and it took me a year. But the thing was, it was a year of doing the media relations part. It wasn't even a year of pitching. It was a year of pitch. They had a interview with a reporter. They were also an investigative reporter, which means they have to investigate the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that depends on a lot of variables. And it was just me being professionally persistent, following up, saying, do you need anything else? And that's where, as PR professionals, we help you secure that. Because if you just were talking to them, being like, where's it at every day, that is something that could make them say, like, I don't want to use this source, or I will never use this source again. And so we just act very much as facilitating and just being persistent and just following up, seeing if we can help more, seeing like, hey, if the editor took you off that story, can we have our client comment on another story you're working on? Like, that's all happening in the background, but it's all under the umbrella of media relations.
I guess the goal isn't necessarily just to like have a one and done either.
Never.
It's that relations aspect. Like, you've now laid the groundwork for a year. Hopefully,
yes.
Hopefully this person, says, okay, well, that source was a good source. They were easy to work with. They're professional. I think of things even as simple as having a good headshot.
Yes. No, it's all simple things. Like, which is why Postali is great, is because we take care of all of it. Now, granted, that's not always the case. Sometimes you're dealing with just a publicist who will organize all of it for you, but you're still like involved in the managing of it. Or you sometimes have the marketing team working together. Like, PR actually doesn't operate in a silo ever. And that's something that also is really important to the media relations part, is we have to present you to the world, right? we have to also protect you from crises. So if we don't have the package created or the branding created, or you don't have a website, you don't have a LinkedIn, there's so many different pieces. And we're almost in a way like business consultants. We come in and we're like, what do you want to achieve? What are the objectives?
Yeah.
And okay, here's what we need to do to achieve that. And sometimes the first part of it, I know we referenced this previously, is building the foundation.
Yeah.
And getting you started and giving and building a runway for you to take off. But if you already started doing that on your own, then it's just refinement. Like it's so many different things. And then maybe you have a story that's like, yes, let's immediately start pitching people. But we still have to go through and vet that we're pitching to the right journalists. Like one of the number one complaints from journalists is getting what we call spray and pray pitches. And if we do that, it actually negatively affects you ever getting placed by that person.
Right.
So there's a lot, like, again, media relations, it's 2 words, it's a phrase, but it covers all of those pieces. Do you have a good headshot? Us telling you, hey, we need to get a better headshot. Do you have a page, like a press page on your website, in the news, in the media? Do they know how to contact you? Like, there's so many different pieces to it. So we manage all of that. And, again, I think publicists and PR pros are known to have like the glam life sometimes. And it's fun, but we are telling stories, but we're very much in charge of making sure you have all the pieces to present that well.
Right.
Yes.
Well, so suppose I don't want to be on Twitter.
Yeah, which happens.
So suppose I'm a lawyer that knows a lot about my subject. And I do want people to know about me, but I'm not about to go out and my style is not necessarily going to be beneficial to the media on Twitter. They're not going to look at my Twitter page. So what can I do then?
So we call those looking at different tactics. So social media is always great. It's also the fastest way to get in touch with a journalist, because most journalists are on Twitter. Most news outlets are on Twitter. Most news outlets look for the news on Twitter.
Right.
But you have other ways to establish what I call authority. And that's where you can do guest post. That is probably the next best way. If you're someone who prefers more long form content, which actually I do personally, you just start looking at guest posts. Some news outlets actually allow you to be a columnist, and maybe you just double down on one specific outlet and keep sharing things on their, website. And from there, it may become something bigger, or you have the same concept as maybe you really like TV, right? Maybe you really love that. And you just keep working and working and working towards being a contributor on a news channel show. Like, there are different ways to do it. The idea is that you want to create some sort of record that you actually care about that topic, and they can get a sense of like how you speak, how you write. And it's not just about you saying like, hire me. That's the thing. You can't say hire me on someone else's platform. They're trying to sell their stuff. And again, this is where, as PR pros, we have to come in and explain this, manage expectations, and really help the client understand the process. It's a process. It's like you said, it's not one and done. At the end of the day, we want to build what we call traction, which is, yes, I spent a year on that post, but now that journalist, which they did say at the end, hey, I hope we get to work again. That is the gold you want.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, so that made me think of the different ways of going about this. So you could do long form content on LinkedIn, and that is, you have some followers, and so you're able to say, okay, well, I could guest post here. Or you could do YouTube content and create things that are informative, and then pitch yourself to like television. But a PR professional would also help you, I imagine, say, your lighting is really not professional.
Yes.
on that video. You may want to go up from this video camera to this one, or you're not ironing your shirts.
Yes, no.
And
everything about your presentation.
Right.
I mean, we also help clients learn how to speak. And that sounds strange for attorneys who speak in court all the time. Sounds a little strange. But we have to do what we call media training. We have to,
Right.
yes, I've done things where I've seen like, hey, we need to do a prep session for your lighting. What are you wearing? Is, if the news outlet says there's going to be on green screen, you can't wear certain colors. Like that is all a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and simple things like please don't be on your phone while you're on the on the outlet. There's a lot of things you have to do. And again, for us as PR professionals, we do as much prep work as possible because of course we can't do the actual like presentation for you.
Right.
So I'm not saying that it doesn't fall through sometimes, but that's why we call media training. It's all
Mm-hmm.
part of that media relations part. It's all about like we're building relationships and we're also prepping you to then like pass the baton and be like, hey, now you're talking to the journalist, do well. Thumbs up.
So, all right, what that makes me think of is that's scary.
It is.
I don't like to a lot of times, and I say this with a production level microphone in front of me. I
Yes.
don't like to necessarily talk to people on the record who buy their ink in barrels, who buy
Fair.
their
Yes.
ink in bulk, and it's
Yeah.
not. It scares me. And so I guess where I'm going with that is it's even lawyers and even frankly people that speak for a living or write for a living need somebody there to help them
Yeah.
kind of talk through things or
Yes.
make sure
Be
they
accountable for it.
look correct or
Mhm.
um, more importantly, a lot of times is in a lot of different types of practices or professions, there's just some courtesy,
Yes, exactly.
that
We know
that you
all
don't
of them.
necessarily know if you're not in there, and you're going to get burned a couple times, and you may not have a couple times to get burned. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you don't. I mean, it happens. Like I said, it's not the most fun thing, but it happens. We just have to make sure that you understand the process. I think the biggest thing is patience. I say this every time we've talked. It's patience. Staying professionally persistent is what we do, but
Hmm.
we also know like, hey, if the news, if something comes up in the news cycle that is we know is going to dominate it, like right now it's not the time to pitch your story, and that in itself from a PR professional can save you in the future, and
Right.
so there's all these small little things and they don't seem big in the moment,
Hmm.
but it's all a part of keeping a relationship. It's literally like dating. Like it's like dating. Did you forget the anniversary? Oh, that's not good. Like if you bring it down to that level,
Yeah.
it's like that. And again, in those moments, it's a small thing, but it can make a very big difference. And if a reporter ever wants to call that PR professional again or want to use you as a source again, that's how it works.
Whether you like it or not. Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, but that's how it works. Yes.
Well, and I think that's kind of what we're getting at here with PR and media relations. Your PR, especially. When we kind of go to a broader category, it's there. You have a public presence. If you don't, then you either intentionally are that way, or you likely are just not doing a very good job of marketing yourself and not getting a lot of clients necessarily. So
Right.
it's there whether you like it or not. So again, before we just kind of to wrap up, let's talk about the foundations again. We want to make sure that people can contact you,
Yes, you want to make sure people can contact you. That's
that
very important.
that you have a website that says you're you and
Yes,
kind of what you're
please.
doing, and it
Yes.
looks professional. And again, this is table stakes baseline thing here.
Mhm.
um what else? Up to date social media of whichever social
Yes,
media platform you want to be on or are comfortable on.
yes,
Up to date social media.
yes.
What else are we
And
talking about?
being clear on your branding. So
Okay.
sometimes most people say I just want a website. And if you go
Mm-hmm.
to like you came to Postali or you went to any other agency or even just, a smaller business owner who does websites, they're gonna tell you have to do the branding first. And
Mm-hmm.
that branding process could actually also involve your PR professional because we need to understand your message. We need to understand what you want to be known for. We need to understand what colors are going to reflect you well. We need to help take the headshots. Maybe we need to get you a stylist. It's like there's all these things. So I would say website branding and like an updated or semi-active social media are the three
Mm-hmm.
foundations. Um, it's understandable that you have to start somewhere. So I'm not saying to look at someone who, tweets every 5 minutes and think you have to
Right.
go there, but you need to start with the basics because that is what helps you with a foundation. We come in, help you build a runway, and then we help you take off.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, Tamara, thank you again for talking about this with me. It's always fun to talk about this stuff because I think it's something that is really foreign to a lot of us. You know, we see a
Mhm.
lot of attorneys. I see a lot of attorneys that I go, hey, they're doing this really well. But if
Mhm.
you think about the amount of attorneys that are out there, it's not really very many of them. So
Right. Yes.
thanks, thanks for passing this information on. I appreciate it. And certainly people want to
Oh,
learn more about Postali and what you guys can do. Y'all had some winning websites in our
yes.
best law firm website competition recently. So
Yes.
if you want to see what Postali can do for PR or website or design, they can go to postali.com and you talk to you guys there. And I know y'all are always happy to give people good information.
Yes. We love it. Steer them in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. And we'll see you next time.